Good afternoon. It is evident to us that our Archbishop is the strongest of us all. Good afternoon, Professor Song. Archbishop, glad that you're okay. Members of the school committee, Ms. Low, members of the teaching faculty, parents, students, gentlemen of the class of 2018. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Professor Song to our midst today. Professor Song is a consummate educator, healer, humanitarian, and most important of all, a devout believer. Over the past decades, the professor has been commissioned to very special positions to guide and support the citizens of Hong Kong. Two in particular left the deepest impressions. First, to watch over the patients and the medical practitioners when the SARS pandemic hit Hong Kong. And secondly, to watch over our university students during a rather tumultuous period in our society. Professor Song's influence extends far beyond the boundaries of his professional roles. On many instances, Professor Song has reignited the faith of many and has inspired us all to continue the good work. Professor, many of our colleagues told me that you have been a true inspiration to them, especially during some of the darker hours in our society. So welcome back to Diocesan Hill, Professor. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Archbishop, Dr. Paul Kwong, and the school committee for their selfless contribution to the school in countless ways throughout the year. You are truly the pillars of our school. The report of the school year is in your hands. I hope you will take the time to go through the pages and come to appreciate the great effort our teaching faculty and our students have exerted throughout the year. I invite you all to look beyond the printed stellar results of our boys and go behind the scenes and peer into the minutes, hours, days, and months of hard work and toil. Throughout the year, I have had opportunities to visit numerous teams and groups in their pursuit of excellence, in academics, in scientific discoveries, in artistic performances, in athletic endeavors. Boys, I want you to know that it is a special blessing indeed to be able to witness your growth. I always enjoyed walking past your classrooms and watching you interact with your teachers, sometimes seriously, sometimes less seriously, or seeing you pull through some great challenges posed by your opponents at the playing fields, or listening to you all perfect a passage of music, or hearing the teachers debrief you all after a competition. The list goes on. I consider all these the best part of my job. These moments remind us why we are here in the first place, to put you all in the best possible position to succeed, not only in school, but also in life. In this ever-changing world, the challenges you face in the coming days will not be simple. From the moment you leave this hill and enter into university or the workplace, the challenges will be much more complicated than anything you have faced so far. But lest I become too grim in my sharing, allow me to illustrate this point with a scene from one of last year's most anticipated popular movies, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And I would like to begin by saying, may the Force be with you, Padawans. If you are not interested in Star Wars or have never seen the movie, you are hereby given special permission to space out for the next 5 minutes. For the rest of us, the movie began with a single rebel X-Wing fighter staring down the Empire's fleet killer machine, the Dreadnought. The pilot was Poe Dameron, and his trusted co-pilot, the resourceful and powerful android BB-8. Poe and BB-8 were charged to protect the escaping rebel fleet from the pursuit of the powerful Empire. Barely minutes into the scene, after some amusing verbal jousting between Poe and General Hux of the Empire, our X-Wing pilot seized the opportunity and gave the order to his buddy android co-pilot, "Punch it, BB-8." The X-Wing fighter immediately lit up and went full throttle, and Poe took out the self-defense cannon array on the surface of the dreadnought. By neutralizing the cannons, the rebel bombers were in a great position to unleash their payload on the dreadnought. After this initial success, Poe was faced with the choice to retreat and preserve the bomber fleet to fight another day, or to send in the bombers with a strong possibility of sacrificing these good men and women so that rebel fleet has time to escape. Poe chose the latter and gave the order to send in the bombers. The battle was fierce and resulted in the destruction of the dreadnought, enabling the escape of the rebel fleet, but unfortunately at the expense of the annihilation of the entire rebel bomber squadron. The story is fictional, but the realistic dilemma of fight or flight prompted a surprisingly high number of discussions on the internet. Some claimed that Poe made the right call, claiming that had he not given the order to sink the dreadnought, the entire rebel fleet would have been destroyed. The sacrificial move was instrumental in the survival of the small rebel fleet. Others, on the other hand, disagreed with Poe's decision. A PhD candidate at Columbia University named Theo Milanopoulos went as far as to benchmark this maneuver against Karl von Clausewitz's classic theory of warfare. For your information, in the world of warfare, von Clausewitz is the German equivalent of the Chinese mastermind of the art of war, Sun Tzu. In his 5-page exposition published on Christmas Day 2017, I can only imagine this PhD candidate's the quality of his social life. Titled, Clausewitz as the Last Jedi, Culminating Points of Victory, Civil-Military Relations, and Strategy in Star Wars. Milanopoulos claimed that Poe's move failed to observe what von Clausewitz termed as the culmination point of victory. Milanopoulos claimed that by taking on the dreadnought, Dameron overshoots what Clausewitz, Book 7, Chapter 22, calls the culminating point of victory, the moment in battle that an attacking force, having achieved superiority over its adversary, ought to halt its advance and consolidate its gains rather than continue fighting. If you were Poe Dameron, what would you have done? Would you have chosen to give the command to retreat, or would you have sent in the bombers, sacrificing the few for the benefit of the many? Both decisions would have had its benefits and tremendous drawbacks. Whichever side you feel you would take in this story, this fictional battle scene illustrates a very real struggle that awaits you in the future. It will perhaps be an illustration of the dilemmas that you might face daily. You'll be asked to seek solutions to questions that do not have clear-cut answers. In the coming days, you will find yourselves in situations where it doesn't matter how noble your principles might be, there may always be positives and negatives to your choices. You will face a multitude of opinions and potential ramifications that could cloud your judgment. Young men of DBS, we have trained you to rise to these occasions. We knew that the road ahead would not be easy, and we have tried our best to equip you. Through the years, you have learned how to balance short-term success with long-term well-being. You have learned to sharpen your skills inside the classroom and outside of its confines. You have learned how to lead with efficiency and discipline, yet maintain the warmth of brotherhood fellowship. You have learned how to compete and train fiercely, yet maintain humility and respect for your competitors. You have learned how to speak up for justice and act in mercy, yet know when to listen and when to hold your silence. These are dichotomies that are not easily embraceable, but master them you must. Gentlemen, the world is revolving in a much greater pace than before, and the only certainty is its constant uncertainty. The modern world presents an abundance of dilemmas. It is our duty to confront these challenges and contribute to a positive solution for our community. In recent years, we have witnessed, for example, the internet that is supposed to be the window to the world but when misused, it becomes merely an echo chamber. Often, the social media has designed algorithms to suit the viewer's preference. Instead of being able to gain a wider perspective, only your views are reinforced. Thus, we become more and more narrow-minded. Technological advancements such as AI are supposed to assist human beings, but it may very well replace us in many professions. Lawmaking chambers are supposed to uphold justice, but some have become juvenile sandbox fighting grounds. Public institutions are supposed to serve the public and the needy, but some have become machines of oppression. What would you do when you are faced with these complicated challenges? As we look into the Bible, we see that there's a group of gifted and talented young men, much like you all, that were in the same predicament. In the Old Testament, Daniel and his band of brothers were captured when Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians. These young men were captured and imprisoned in a foreign land, with the captors determined to wipe out their heritage and value system. Daniel and his friends were forced to worship a different god. They were forced to change their diets. They were forced to give up their principles. They were even forced to change their names. The Babylonians were essentially trying to wipe out Daniel and his friends' identities and instill new ones. In a foreign land, in a changing landscape, under an unfamiliar regime, Daniel and his friends did not denounce their faith even when thrown into fire and the lion's den. They kept their minds sharp and maintained their faith and discipline. When forced to change their diet, Daniel made a request to their captors. Instead of adopting the diet of the Babylonians, they chose to eat simply, just water and vegetables. Their bodies miraculously became stronger instead of weaker. Daniel's perseverance paid off. Eventually, their faith shone through, and the day came when even their captors noticed their uncommon wisdom and insight. Daniel and his friends were summoned to solve their king's problems because no Babylonian was able to do so. Gentlemen, I hope you will be like Daniel and his brothers when you leave the hill and go into the world. You must follow your moral compass and guard your inner fortitude. You must support one another and put your minds and hearts together in face of challenges. On those days when you feel that the challenges become too overwhelming, remember that you can rely on our good Lord for wisdom and strength to carry on. I would like to conclude, as I have begun the sharing, by quoting from another movie. On Wednesday, I went with some of our young history scholars to watch The Darkest Hour, a movie about Winston Churchill during the days when the United Kingdom faced impending invasion from Nazi Germany, and how Churchill and his people found the resolve to fight. The movie ended with this quote: "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Remember, gentlemen of DBS, that the success you achieve is not final, and the failure you experience is not fatal. The most important thing is that you continue to fight on, that you will continue to search forward in light of overwhelming adversity. The Diocesan Boys' School has now entered her 149th year since her founding as an orphanage back in 1869. As we knock on the door of our 150th year, may we find the courage to continue, united and undaunted by the challenges that lie ahead. May God bless you all, and may God bless the Diocesan Boys' School. Thank you.